It's a happy day. It's a bittersweet day for a lot of folks. It is an extraordinary day. It is a day many thought would never come. Certainly no one who worked in the Trump administration, and that is the day that we are now officially out of Afghanistan. The CENTCOM has announced that the final C-17 Moose 94 has left. I wish we could have called it Elvis. Like if it had been call sign Elvis, would have been a great name for this plane, but it is Moose 94. And Moose 94 was the call sign of the last C-17 to leave Afghanistan. It took off. All U.S. personnel is out of the country. All U.S. citizens who want to leave, or I guess who didn't decide they wanted to leave in the last 12 hours, are out. All of our Afghan allies that we have in direct coordination with, and we've been dealing with, especially in the Kabul area, have been removed from the area if they have not gone to another area where they've been evac'd to another place. That's the untold story. And by the way, while drawing attention and fire to the Kabul airport by making it the central point of all of America's focus on the Afghan removal, it allowed the U.S. government and the military to remove people from other parts of the country with very little or no fanfare. There is also, footage of Afghan alleged Taliban flying. Let's see if I can find it. Flying Blackhawks. No shots of them landing successfully. Curiously enough, they seem to be able to get them off the ground. It's a little difficult when your flight plan is entirely based on holding a gun to a former Afghan pilot's head, and they are literally having to hijack aircraft as a normal mode of transportation. Run that through your head. Holy smokes. So, yeah, Biden 116,000, Trump 0. Yes, by the way, and we still stand by it that in the last 4 years, nothing materially changed in Afghanistan. And if Trump had a magic plan for getting people out, why didn't he use it? Besides the fact that there was no plan any more than there's a healthcare plan, and besides the fact that he's a nutless scrotum, and beside the fact that he was actively trying to sabotage the SIV program so that we couldn't get the Afghans that helped us out, specifically because, Afghans. Aren't they all, I'm sure some of them are good people, but aren't they murderers and rapists, and they're just going to come over here and blow themselves up? It's all been a big ploy. They only, guarded, helped, and guided our troops for years simply so they could sneak into our country and blow themselves up. So is the fantasy. So if Biden had a plan, he executed it. That's the difference. If Trump had a plan, he didn't actually have a plan. That's we have to just admit it. If you're a Trump supporter, fine, knock yourself out. But can we stop with the nonsense that he actually A, had a plan, and B, was going to use it? Because if he did, he would have. And if it was great, and we could have gotten everybody out, and nobody would have known we were gone, and we would have kept Bagram Air Force Base with I don't know who, I suppose, the ghost of the military that was going to stand up on its own if we just gave him a couple more weeks. So a big thank you to the president, to Joseph Biden, for doing the hard work of actually making the decision to get us out of there and sticking to it. That was, the very reason that Biden is getting all this flack from the right, especially, but even from someone strangely on what you would think is the left, or at least, if you buy all the hardline, anybody in the news is on the left, obviously. Strangely, from those folks still going, yeah, but did we have to go? Did we really have to go? Did we really? So, and the soldiers that we lost, and the ones that were injured, who I do not feel personally are getting enough of attention around this. Maybe it's wanted or whatnot, but from my audience, I think I can clearly say, and from this show, thank you, and our sincere condolences isn't quite the word, but our we are deeply sorry and respectful for the damage that was done to your body in service of your country and in saving lives of people whom you did not know, and you probably will never know. That sacrifice is painful and ongoing, and will be with many of these folks for the rest of their lives. And it is impossible to fully convey the gratitude and respect I have for people who are injured in war and in the line of duty and in the like, saving other people's lives, especially. On another note, before we get into other stuff in the video today, the videos that we have, which is of course a ping pong match on the right between like, we should have never left and we were going to leave anyways, and there was no plan ever in place, they didn't implement it, and Trump had a perfect plan and we just had to read it and follow the instructions, and yet he never wanted to go and we would have kept Bagram, and it's just like ridiculous. I would like to say to the Republican and Democratic Congress people who went to Afghanistan, the first group, which was just, I think, one of each, and then the second group, which is 3 or 4 Republicans, I would like to say a resounding and profound fuck you. This bullshit PR stunt you went on may very well have led to people who were guarding and watching the section of the wall where the explosion went off being pulled from their station to guard your narrow ass as you came in just to look around. In the middle of the biggest evacuation of civilians and military in our country's history, speedy exit anyways, you decided to fly in and tie up security and material personnel so that you could go wag your dick in the wind. And it's shameful and disgusting. And the timing of the explosions and the deaths that were directly related to this are not lost on anyone. You being there, you landing there, you going there at this time. And by the way, none of these fuckers are going tomorrow to look for left behind people. Not happening. They showed up under the full guard of the military intelligence, and our civilian contractor personnel on the ground when it was totally safe in that environment, because if they needed extra security to watch out for these assholes, they pulled them off the wall to do it. And if there's even a remote chance that that spotters, snipers, and military personnel that would have been in that area that could have seen some of that stuff coming were drafted back, or we had to pull these people, so these people moved back, and so we pulled these people off to cover them, which is what happens. If that occurred, if there's even a remote possibility that occurred because these dickheads wanted to roll in there and beat their chest and showed their constituents that they were doing something in the middle of this, what their constituents need to know is what they were doing was fucking things up and getting people killed. When the first plane came in with these assholes, and then the second plane, the military just told them to turn around and fuck off. And even in having to do that, there was powwows on the ground about, okay, we've got another group, we've got another plane coming in. What do we do? They're representatives of our government. They have certain levels of oversight. They should be allowed here, but they'll screw up the whole thing. They will mess up our timing. Is it anyone surprised that there was 3 to 5 hour delays in and around certain times that you could time almost exactly with when these assholes showed up? Fucking hell, these people. Let's see. Congress members Afghanistan, Kabul. Seth Moulton, Democrat, Massachusetts. Fuck you. Peter Meyer, Republican, Michigan. Fuck you. The level of disgust. It's difficult for me to be nice. Moulton fucking tweeted it. And let me show you Seth Moulton's tweet. This is what he wrote. May I? Fucking hell. Today with Rep. Meyer, I visited Kabul airport, this is on the 24th, to conduct oversight on the evacuation. Witnessing our young Marines and soldiers at the gates navigating a confluence of humanity as raw and visceral as the world has ever seen was indescribable. It's a reminder of why America's values, why we live up to them, matter to people all over the world. I've never talked to more public servants, from salty Marines to the most seasoned State Department officials, who came to tears describing their work. The world has truly never seen anything like what America is doing in Kabul this week. Deeply tragic, highly heroic. And you were there gumming up the fucking works. Talk to them when they get home. What kind of a dickhead it runs into a firefight knowing that they'll be protected? Or, like, imagine these assholes when there's a fire going on in Northern California and they decide to, like, show up there with news crews and a bunch of other people, so security around them has to be really tight. You have to pull fire department personnel off them to make sure somebody hoses them down if they burst into fucking flames. And then you're like, I wanted to talk to these firemen to see just what kind of people they were. Just show the heroic actions they were there. How about this? When they get out of there, after they're done doing their jobs, maybe don't make their job harder. It's amazing the bravery they showed in, having to deal with the fact that I was there taking pictures and roaming around with an extra security detail. Fuck you, dude. And Meyer, this douche. Yeah, well, here he is. Where we go? Did he post any pictures? Yeah, he's got a picture of, if our back of the wall is well we built, and it won't fall to veterans to clean up Biden's mess. This is what he's tweeting. Rep. Meyer retweeted this bullshit after he flew to fucking Afghanistan and gummed up the fucking works. These assholes. No, 1,000 times no. I'm like, it's fucking embarrassing. I mean, I would like, and then, let's see. Second, nobody's saying that I wasn't, second, let's see. Because there was another flight. Yeah, if anybody can find the who was on, because they weren't saying who was on the second flight. That got turned around, because they're not saying. And the reason they're not saying is because they know they fucked up. And this is, this is what happens. Yeah, well, Glenn Beck at least lied about where he was. I mean, he was, the idea is like you're supposed to assume he's in a secret place in Afghanistan. He really can't tell you. But he just said, I'm in the Middle East, like all of the Middle East is the fucking same. asshole was in a 7-star hotel in Abu Dhabi, probably live streaming. What a fucking coward. The administration officials were very polite, more polite than I was about it. They said it distracted from the already frenzied effort to get Americans and allies safely out of the country. Some question whether the congressman took seats from other would-be evacuees and diverted scarce resources to ensure their safety that could have been better used elsewhere. Yeah, precisely. Fuck you. Just frigging disgusted. Representative Moulton and Representative Meyer should be fucking ashamed of themselves. And they are so lucky that it's a smaller story. But it should not be. Just grotesque. Let's see. And CSL, I don't know if you can find it. I've been looking for it, but an article on the second flight that was turned away. I don't know if anybody in the chat room can dig it up, but I keep trying to find who was on it. But since it was also unauthorized, a lot of them are either bullshitting. Probably a bunch were gonna say they were on it and then didn't and weren't, or just flew to fucking Qatar and were gonna pretend. So, I mean, we have a lot to cover today. I just had to get that off my chest, and I admit that all day long, I have been. I've been vacillating levels of emotional during all this shit. Watching veterans on television talking about their experience, about their fellow service members who are dealing with the reality of exiting and the reality of staying, and let me express something on a personal note about my feelings, anyways, about our servicemen and women who served in Afghanistan. They served honorably, seeking out Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and hunting them down and limiting Al-Qaeda's reach in that country. They also served honorably over the last 15 years, especially building up a government which gave Afghan women and girls a chance at an education and all kinds of other stuff that ultimately the Afghan government and the military were not willing to protect. But they literally, in this process, our servicemen and women created a generation of educated women in Afghanistan that now, either through fleeing their country and being able to live in another country, will express that education, or being in exile temporarily as their country shifts and finding a way back to help build up their country, is an element of the future that would not have been possible if it hadn't been for the honorable service of our soldiers and our support staff and our embassy personnel. And the soldiers who certainly were wounded and killed this week, getting people out, ending this conflict, and attempting to do their level best to shore up the military and shore up the government until the very last few weeks when it was clear they would not stand on their own. But these men and women who lost their lives protecting strangers and helping evacuees get out of the country, Americans, men, women, and children who helped us out, and their extended families escape the Taliban and others, there is no other higher, more honorable service. So my respect goes out to all of them equally. And I don't feel like they should be diminished or feel like their sacrifice was less valuable because of the stage of the conflict that they were involved in or the service that they gave. Because whether the mission was great or whether the mission was flawed or whether the mission was a failure, soldiers and support personnel on the ground always are confronted day by day, moment by moment, morning by morning, with incredibly heroic acts that they have to do every single day, or are confronted with the possibility of doing it in the way that civilians never are and never have to. because they choose to do this. So I can't, it is impossible for me to utter the depth of respect I have for them in this process. And no one along the way was serving dishonorably in this process or was somehow serving less of a mission during this, because hunting down Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda in that country and limiting its reach was an honorable act. Building up, helping to build a government and shore it up over time so that these women and girls over the last 20 years could grow up with an education they never would have had is an honorable thing. And protecting people as they evacuate an area that we have no right to take ownership of and turn into the 51st state, nor would anyone want us to, is an honorable act as well. Period. End of story. And if anyone disagrees with me on this, let me say unequivocally, I don't care. This is my truly, deeply heartfelt opinion. It goes beyond the political aspect of it. It goes beyond some sort of like internet moralizing that some people will do. That other people's opinions of my opinion on this matter hold no sway with me. I do not think this because people like it or don't like it. I think this way because it is genuinely based on my own personal ethics and beliefs and my caring for my fellow man. Period.